Yeah, how do you put someone in jail and you don't even name the clients? That sounds kind of insane. There was a lot of people that met with him and did business with him and traveled with him after he was arrested.
Names, last names, area codes, it's okay.
Who created this book?
Epstein himself.
We're so grateful to be joined by Jeffrey Epstein survivor Annie Farmer. Annie, thank you so much for taking the time to come back on the show.
I would like to answer your question, but on the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer this question and any related question.
Online, the whispers exploded after a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. During a tense stretch of conversation, Joe Rogan turned his attention to the newly unsealed files from the United States Department of Justice tied to Jeffrey Epstein, and within hours, one unexpected name began flashing across timelines like a warning light: Oprah Winfrey. Rogan didn't level an accusation. He chose his words carefully, but he did ask a question that made people uneasy. Why do the same powerful figures keep surfacing in address books, flight manifests, and glittering social circles orbiting Epstein? He made something clear. A name in a document is not a conviction. It doesn't equal guilt. It simply means, at some moment in time, paths crossed. And in the rarefied air of Hollywood galas and billionaire fundraisers, countless high-profile personalities brushed shoulders with Epstein long before the full horror of his crimes came to light. But Rogan pushed the tension further. The real issue, he suggested, is transparency. How did so many celebrities, lawmakers, and media titans move in the same rooms as Epstein without raising alarms? Did their fame polish his image, granting him credibility he never deserved? Or was it nothing more than the byproduct of elite networking, where power recognizes power and rarely asks questions? Then he sharpened the point. Online speculation moves at lightning speed. A single photograph, a stray email, a contact entry ripped from context. Without verified proof, suspicion can mutate into accusation overnight. Rogan's underlying warning wasn't about one individual. It was about systems of influence, about how reputations can become armor, and about the public's right to clarity when sealed records are suddenly opened. This wasn't a declaration that Oprah had done anything criminal. It was a deeper, more unsettling question. Why do the same towering names echo through one of the darkest scandals of our era? And why, even after documents are released, does the full story still feel just out of reach? Until every page is transparent and every contradiction addressed, the vacuum will be filled by doubt, and with every unanswered question, public trust fractures a little more.
Have an understanding of how things are really working than ever before.
Yeah.
Like this Epstein file thing, right? That was a big eye-opener for a lot of people. When you see how many people after 2008, after he was arrested, after he went to jail, were actively taking money from him. MIT took money from him and tried to hide it and said to make sure that any donations from Jeffrey are listed as anonymous. So
Wow.
you find out like people are like, they referred to him as Voldemort, like you couldn't say his name.
Wow.
There was a lot of people that met with him and did business with him and traveled with him after he was arrested, after he went to jail.
Do you spend a lot of time reading them?
No, I try not to. I try to have experts come on. I try to
And just-
read. You can't change it.
Yeah.
And it'll f with your head.
Yeah, it's
Like
toxic.
You will really get.
It'll stick with
Yeah.
and I know I've tried not to.
Yeah.
What you're about to hear sounds almost unbelievable, like something pulled from a late-night conspiracy thread. Yet, several former insiders and outspoken celebrities have claimed that certain corners of the industry hide practices far more disturbing than the public ever sees. Whispers circulate about powerful executives with grotesque obsessions. Stories so dark they barely sound human. One controversial figure, Peter J. Nijegard, who once moved through the same celebrity circles and even appeared as a guest connected to Oprah's world, was reportedly recorded making deeply disturbing requests, allegedly attempting to pressure women for access to fetal music remains. The details alone are enough to make your stomach turn. Whether every claim is true or not, one thing is clear. Beneath Hollywood's polished red carpets and flashing cameras, there are shadows most people never imagine. And the deeper you look, the uglier it starts to feel. The use of other people's biological material, particularly stem cells and blood, is something insiders say happens far more often than the public realizes. When news broke about Jeffrey Epstein and allegations involving minors, shockwaves rippled through the industry and suddenly cryptic reactions began surfacing. Around that time, Nicki Minaj posted a series of tweets hinting at what she claimed to have witnessed behind closed doors during her career. She never mentioned anyone by name, never spelled it out directly, but the timing and the wording raised eyebrows instantly. To many observers, it didn't take much imagination to see who her comments were aimed at. The same powerful circles whose names now keep reappearing throughout the Epstein files.
If you were on the scene and you were powerful, like, to be honest, like, if you're not in those files, it would be an insult because it just means that you were a bit of a loser.
She wrote, your favorite artist has been practicing rituals in a satanic cult where they take babies from other countries and mutilate and kill them as a form of blood sacrifice to their god.
Epstein was possibly about to cooperate with the feds right before he died. Now, Oprah is limited in the context of the files, but there is clear collusion between Oprah and Jeffrey Epstein.
In the end, everything circles back to one chilling question. What exactly was Epstein doing with the children around him? Depending on who you ask, the answers split into two completely different and equally disturbing stories. Several of Epstein's alleged victims later stepped forward, describing what they believed was something far more sinister than anyone expected. According to their testimony, Epstein wasn't just exploiting people. He was allegedly fixated on building something twisted, almost clinical, like a so-called baby farm hidden away on his private ranch. One sworn statement paints an especially unsettling picture. The witness claimed that Epstein openly spoke with scientists and wealthy businessmen about using his New Mexico property as a controlled site where women would be inseminated with his sperm and pressured to carry his children to term. According to the account, he wasn't whispering these ideas. He described them like a business plan. Mr. Epstein allegedly wanted as many as 20 women pregnant at the same time at his massive 33,000 QFT Zorro ranch tucked into a quiet town outside Santa Fe. And if those claims are true, this wasn't about desire or impulse. It was something colder, more calculated. Epstein reportedly obsessed over concepts like eugenics, genetic manipulation, and engineering his own bloodline, as if human lives were nothing more than experiments on a board. What's even more unsettling is that these conversations weren't happening in dark corners or hidden rooms. He allegedly hosted polished dinners, private lunches, and invitation-only gatherings attended by some of the world's most influential scientific minds. At one point, the talk even drifted towards so-called designer babies. In his mind, it seemed the goal wasn't just control. It was to manufacture what he considered the perfect human.
I'm in the files for not going.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm in the files for not going. Jeffrey Epstein was trying to meet with me.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah, and I was like, what?
I'm like, no thanks.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad?
Yeah, but I would have never went anyway. It's like, it's not even a possibility that I would have ever went.
But
especially after I Googled him. I was like, what the are you talking about? This was like 2017. One of my guests was trying to get me to meet him. I was like, you high? Like, what the are you talking about?
For what reason would you? What would be...
If I was a guy who was like sucking up to the rich and powerful, if I was really interested in hanging out with rich and powerful people.
You know, it's crazy. That's so crazy. But yeah, some people get intoxicated by being in a circle of rich and powerful people, even if they're not, like, they don't even have any ambitions of being one of those people. They just want to be around them. They want to be around Nobel Prize winners. And because this guy what he was doing was very clever in that he was getting all of these very powerful and very respected people together. Yeah. And you would figure like, oh, it's if that guy's there, that lady's
Clinton's
there.
Here. This is fine.
Right.
Clinton's here. How could this be bad? Yeah. Look, it's Steven Pinker. How could this be bad? Yeah. You know, he's a genius. Like, and so you would go, I would imagine, you would go to these, because like, there's people that went to these, like, he had parties in New York, like, he brought in celebrities and comedians. Didn't Louis Black get invited to one of those? I think he's talked about it. I know Chelsea Handler went to one of them. It's like he would bring all these people in, and he'd like to be around famous people and entertainers and a lot of intellectuals and professors. And Noam Chomsky was famously deeply involved.
Unspeakable things were rumored to have taken place on Epstein's private island. Stories so disturbing they still linger years later. And once Epstein was arrested in 2006, the reality set in fast. His name was radioactive. The walls were closing in, and he needed a way out. So he turned to the oldest strategy used by the powerful. When scrutiny becomes dangerous, reputation laundering. Epstein didn't retreat. He rebranded. In the aftermath of his arrest, he aggressively reinvented himself as a benefactor. Money began flowing into charities. Academic initiatives suddenly had a new backer. He pushed his way into elite humanitarian and scientific spaces, places where credibility is currency. Universities accepted his funding. Nonprofits opened their doors. Respected institutions allowed him access, even though his past was already public and deeply troubling. But the transformation didn't stick the way Epstein expected. Suspicion remained. The stain wouldn't wash off. That's when Epstein allegedly realized something critical. Money alone wasn't enough. What he needed next wasn't another donation. It was a human shield. Someone the public already trusted. Someone whose reputation could speak louder than his crimes.
Sarah Ferguson, yes, the Duchess of York. She is involved with Epstein, and she is involved with Oprah. Let's talk about this specifically. Sarah sent Epstein an email saying, I want to make sure you're aware I'm going on Oprah tomorrow, and she is going to ask me about my debts, the entrapment of last year, and the press about you in January. It'll be quick and at the top of the show, all of 10 seconds, a very small piece. However, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of this and seek your advice on how you want me to answer. It will be a tiny piece. This is straight up collusion. This is Oprah passing through a message to Epstein. And you know what? Jeffrey responded to Sarah with the answer that he was supposed to give. Jeffrey was unfairly characterized as a pedophile by the tabloid press. Many years ago, Jeffrey pleaded guilty to soliciting underage prostitutes. He paid his debt to society and has sought forgiveness. I have nothing more to say. This was in 2011. This is clear collusion between Oprah, Sarah.
And this is where the conversation gets uncomfortable, because when you step back and look at the bigger picture, Oprah's name doesn't just appear once or twice beside controversial figures. It shows up repeatedly over the years. She's crossed paths with powerful men who were later exposed and convicted in massive scandals across the entertainment world. Names like Harvey Weinstein, R. Kelly, Sean Diddy Combs. Each one at different times sat comfortably inside Hollywood's inner circle, and each one eventually became the center of disturbing headlines. On their own, any one of those connections could be brushed off as coincidence. But when the same pattern keeps surfacing, people start asking questions, because patterns don't just appear out of nowhere. They build slowly, quietly, until they're impossible to ignore. Take Harvey Weinstein. For decades, he wasn't treated like a villain. He was treated like royalty. Red carpets, awards, standing ovations. Oprah, like many others in the industry at the time, publicly spoke positively about him before the allegations became widely known. He was embraced, promoted, protected, until suddenly the walls closed in and everything collapsed. And looking back now, it forces people to wonder how so many warning signs were missed or simply overlooked.
Supported victims of sexual assault in the wake of numerous allegations against Harvey Weinstein, singer Seal Instagrammed this meme, showing Winfrey kissing the disgraced mogul. It reads, when you have been part of the problem for decades, but suddenly they all think you are the solution.
Please welcome Seal!
The 54-year-old who's appeared on Oprah's show captioned his post, "Oh, I forgot, that's right, you'd heard the rumors, but you had no idea he was actually serially assaulting young starry-eyed actresses, my bad." While Weinstein maintains his innocence, Seal hasn't commented further, and Oprah has not responded.
This moment is a really powerful time for everybody to get woke.
Fans have come to her defense, pointing out Winfrey is a sexual survivor. They also posted pics of Seal's ex, Heidi Klum.
In Hollywood, critics say profit always comes first. And as long as the money keeps flowing, the suffering of children becomes background noise. According to those who've spoken out, silence itself is a commodity. You're rewarded for it, paid for it, controlled by it. Enormous checks aren't just compensation for talent. They're leverage, an unspoken agreement to stay compliant, to ignore what shouldn't be ignored. Some allege this is how predators tighten their grip. They lure other celebrities in with life-changing money. And once you take it, the balance of power shifts. The payment isn't only for appearances or performances. It's for obedience, for looking away, for keeping your mouth shut when things don't feel right. Critics argue that Hollywood's hierarchy is designed to shield insiders, allowing certain figures to rise untouched while scandals quietly disappear behind closed doors. Years ago, Dave Chappelle famously walked away from a massive deal, saying he didn't trust what the industry expected in return. At the time, many people laughed it off. Some mocked him. Others called him unstable or difficult. Even Oprah Winfrey publicly made light of his decision, reinforcing the narrative that he had thrown away success. For years, Dave was treated like a punchline. But now, as more conversations surface about how power actually operates behind the scenes, fans are looking back with fresh eyes. Some believe he didn't just reject a contract, he saw the trap before it snapped shut. Because when someone refuses the money, refuses the silence, refuses the control, they aren't just saying no to a deal. They're stepping outside the system entirely. Back then, no one understood his move. Now, many are starting to think the warning signs were there all along.
Outside of my frame of reference, I've been in show business since I was 14, and I've heard the stories of what happens, and I've seen these kinds of things play out in front of me.
Okay. When you say you heard the stories, what do you mean? What stories?
I mean, you see before, look, Mariah Carey made a $100 million deal, and 3 months later, she's all of a sudden mysteriously crazy. Or Martin Lawrence punches through and he's waving a gun on the street screaming, "They're trying to me."
Yeah, we hear those stories.
And it always happens around the time of their career where it seems as though they're crossing over the next plateau.
Yeah. Would you say you lost your mind, sort of?
No.
No.
Not exactly.
Okay.
I wasn't crazy, but it's incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And I felt like in a lot of instances, I was deliberately being put through stress.
And they do what's called a salt trap. I didn't know this. Apparently baboons love salt.
Okay.
So they put a lump of salt in a hole, and they wait for the baboon. The baboon comes, sticks his hand in the hole, grabs the salt makes his hand bigger, and he's trapped. He can't get his hand out. Now, if he's smart, all he does is let go of the salt. Baboon doesn't want to let go of the salt. Then the bushman just comes, takes the baboon, throws him in the cage, and gives him all the salt he wants. And then the baboon gets thirsty. The bushman lets him out the cage. The first place the baboon runs to is water. Bushman follows him, and they both drink to their fill. And in that analogy, I felt like the baboon.
The circle surrounding Epstein doesn't seem to shrink. It expands. Every new document feels less like closure and more like another door being forced open. And with this latest release, fragments that once looked random are suddenly locking together like pieces of a much darker puzzle. What once sounded like scattered rumors is beginning to feel disturbingly organized. And then there are the names. Not small ones, not forgettable ones. We're talking about people who shape governments, move markets, and control entire industries. Former US presidents, tech billionaires, corporate power brokers, even members of royal bloodlines. Figures who operate at the very top of the food chain are now being dragged back under the harsh light of scrutiny. What's even more unsettling is this. Many of these same names were whispered about years ago. They surfaced briefly, caused a stir, then quietly faded away. At the time, the media brushed them off as coincidences, loose associations, or speculation with no real proof. Easy to dismiss, easy to forget. But now, with this fresh stack of files, those exact names are surfacing again, only this time attached to clearer timelines, repeated communications, and documented connections that place them much closer to Epstein's world than anyone previously admitted. And suddenly, what once sounded like noise is starting to sound a lot more like a pattern.
Chairman of a prominent law firm is stepping down over his association with Jeffrey Epstein. Paul Weiss law chair Brad Karp says in a statement, quote, "Recent reporting has created a distraction and has placed a focus on me that's not in the best interest of the firm." The firm says Karp will remain with the firm, just in a different role. Senior Washington reporter Will Staken is here for more. Hi, Will. So what's the latest on this growing list of prominent people facing scrutiny over the Epstein files?
Yeah, Diane, well I think, Mr. Karp right here is kind of the latest fallout from these Epstein files. Like you said, the really powerful law firm Paul Weiss announced that Mr. Karp would be stepping down after his name appeared in these files. Now, the law firm did not give a reason why Mr. Karp is stepping down, and previously the law firm denied Mr. Karp had any wrongdoing, but with this release of these files, his name appears in the files, mostly with his assistant trying to schedule meetings with Mr. Epstein. But there's an email between Mr. Karp and Epstein where he's asking about if he could help, get his son some kind of job in an upcoming Woody Allen film. So I think these emails, obviously are continuing to have fallout across, widespread industries. It's kind of the latest fallout here. We saw recently that popular wellness influencer Peta Attia also stepped down from his role at the protein company David.
Careers have already begun to crumble in the wake of these newly released files. And at the center of the fallout stands another powerful figure, billionaire Bill Gates. What's clear from the records is that Gates and Jeffrey Epstein were not casual acquaintances. Their connection was real, documented, and traceable. According to the timeline, their interactions began around 2011, and that detail matters. By then, Epstein's criminal conviction was already public knowledge. This wasn't a case of ignorance or misinformation. The record shows that the two met on multiple occasions, including private dinners and closed-door meetings in New York. These weren't accidental run-ins or brief introductions. They were deliberate encounters. And as more details surface, those meetings are now being re-examined under an entirely different light.
Known his name before, there are more unsettling allegations surrounding Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates. Yep, came out as part of the release. It was revealed that back in 2013, Epstein allegedly claimed that Gates was looking to get medication to treat an STD because of having sex with Russian girls. Keyword Russian. We'll get back to that. Yeah, apparently Epstein had penned this draft email on behalf of a Gates advisor who wanted to maybe leave the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So Epstein seemingly wrote in this guy's voice, "In my role as his right hand, I had been asked on multiple occasions and in hindsight wrongly acquiesced into participating in things that have ranged from the morally inappropriate to the ethically unsound, and had been repeatedly asked to do other things that get near and potentially over the line into the illegal. From helping Bill to get drugs in order to deal with consequences of with Russian girls, to facilitating his illicit trysts with married women, to being asked to provide Adderall for bridge tournaments, I feel I owe it to my friends and future colleagues to admit a moral failure." So there was a spokesperson for Bill Gates who rejected the allegations, saying these claims are absolutely absurd and completely.
It's almost surreal how deeply Epstein's reach extended into the highest levels of power. Presidents, princes, billionaires, men who shaped the world. And the question that keeps resurfacing is chillingly simple. Did no one care that Epstein was already a convicted sex offender? The documents suggest that for some, the answer may have been no. In fact, critics say a few ultra-wealthy figures appeared even more drawn to him after his arrest, treating his notoriety as something twistedly intriguing rather than repulsive. According to Legal, correspondence and email exchanges included in the newly released files, Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein were allegedly involved in arranging encounters with women at Epstein's Florida residence. One account claims an exotic dancer was promised payment for explicit performances that was never fully delivered. Other documents suggest Epstein may have facilitated introductions between Prince Andrew and multiple young women across international locations. One such allegation references a meeting in London in 2010 involving a 26-year-old Russian woman. Notably, years after Epstein's conviction had already become public, the fallout has been devastating. Prince Andrew has since been forced to relinquish titles, roles, and public standing because of these associations. But what's unsettling is what comes next. According to statements attributed to a former girlfriend, Andrew reportedly expressed no regret, suggesting that appearing on Epstein's list was, in his view, a sign of status, a signal that you belonged. And for many watching from the outside, that mindset may be the most disturbing revelation of all.
Right, so the people who aren't in the files are
Yes.
Okay. Are you in the files?
Well, of course I am, because it's any journalist that wrote about it.
That's an astonishing attitude, isn't it? You're the loser because you're not in this. I find
all of this begs the question, how is Epstein even allowed to be in the spaces that he was? Epstein didn't just stumble into these circles. He was placed there. Relationships like that are built through gatekeepers, intermediaries, and institutions that benefit from keeping certain people connected and certain secrets buried. Royal families don't socialize with random financiers unless someone they trust is vouching for them. And that's the most uncomfortable part of this entire story. Given how long Epstein operated unchecked, many people question whether powerful institutions failed to investigate him aggressively enough.
Let me just get real and say,
if I gun to your head, what do you think your best assessment of what Epstein, who was Epstein, who was he working for?
Well, I don't know, right? So I'm just guessing. Everybody wants to say he was working for the Mossad. He very well could have been. He could have been working for the CIA. He could have been a guy who was on his own, but also working with them, right? Like a guy that they used, but they never fully endorsed.
Like an asset?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a guy who could move money around.
Right.
He definitely...
Good at laundering money.
The moving money around stuff was very weird because he had money through no way that anybody could ever explain.
Yeah.
He had an enormous amount of money through no way that nobody could ever explain. Which, you know, if you're state-funded, you're funded by Israel, and Israel's funded by America, and, you know, there's also NGOs and nonprofits, and there's ways to move money around where you can give this guy money.
Yeah.
So he was like Weinstein, who is an economist, right? Weinstein's a legitimate mathematician.
Eric?
Yeah. So when Eric met him, his first inclination was he was a fraud.
He's a construct.
Yeah, a construct. And did he tell you the whole story about the girl sitting on his lap?
Yep.
So Epstein, while he's meeting with Eric Weinstein for the first time, has a beautiful girl sitting on his lap, and a woman, I shouldn't say girl. He said she was like in her 20s, and she's sitting on his lap, and he's bouncing around, sort of juggling around.
While he's asking math questions.
Yeah, talking serious. So he was obviously nerd fishing. He was fishing for nerds, and I think he caught a lot of nerds in that net. There's a lot of those 100%. Guys that wound up going to that island. They probably thought, this is great. We get to party.
Finally, the most shocking revelation of all, there have been reports and speculation about whether Epstein cooperated with authorities, but no confirmed agreement has been publicly released. Recently released reports show that right before his death, Epstein agreed to cooperate and name everyone that he worked with. Officially, it was ruled as, but between the malfunctioning cameras, the guards falling asleep, the broken bones in his neck, and the fact that he allegedly had information that could implicate billionaires, politicians, royalty, and intelligence-linked figures. And here's the part no one likes to say out loud. If Epstein was naming names, even preliminarily, that would mean some of the most powerful people on the planet had a direct incentive for him to never testify. Now, to be clear, there is no public list, no confirmed cooperation agreement released in full, and no official acknowledgement that Epstein formally became an informant before his death.
According to an FBI record, Epstein was possibly about to cooperate with the feds right before he died. That on July 29, 2019, his lawyers and the federal prosecutors in this case, in very general terms, discussed the possibility of a resolution of the case and the possibility of the defendant's cooperation. Cooperation's key. Defense counsel did not make a specific proposal, and they did not indicate what the nature of Epstein's cooperation might be, if any. But it was suggested that defense counsel contact SDNY if Epstein was prepared to accept responsibility for his conduct and or they had a specific proposal for a resolution of this case. Okay, so maybe he was going to work out a deal and then he dies, right? That looks suspicious. This is a guy who had connections to the rich and powerful, potentially had a lot of information. Strange.
We're told to trust the headlines, trust the official conclusions, trust that justice was served. But if that were true, why does this story still feel unfinished? Why are there so many names, so many documents, and so little accountability? Maybe Epstein was just one man. Or maybe he was a middleman, a hub, a liability that knew too.